Hi guys, welcome to Forest Classroom. Today, we are going to talk about Zaman Batu, or the Ice Age. Do you know that the average temperature during Zaman Batu was about 8 degrees Celsius? Can you imagine living in that cold weather for a whole year? Prepare your thickest blanket, guys, because today we are going to walk through that period. First, let's talk about the first part of this chapter, which is Dunia Kita, or our world. The Earth is a very big place where a lot of different living things live in. We have humans like us, and so many other creatures too. And guess what? Our Earth has been here for around 4.6 billion years. Next, let's check out the 7 continents on our planet Earth. They are Oceania, Antarctica, North America, South America, Europe, Africa, and Asia. We also have 5 oceans, which are Arctic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Southern Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, and Indian Ocean. Now, we will move on to the second part of this chapter, which is about Zaman Batu. During this special time, the temperature on our planet was very, very cold and was like this for a very long time. During this time, thick layers of ice were formed and covered the Kutub Utara, or North Pole, and Kutub Selatan, or South Pole. Zaman Batu is split into 4 different stages. The first one is Zaman Miocene, Zaman Pliocene, Zaman Pleistocene, and lastly, Zaman Holocene. Let's take a look at each one. In Zaman Miocene, which happened around 23 to 5 million years ago, mountains that we see today were formed. It was hot and dry that time. If you compare to the average global temperature of about 15 degrees Celsius now, the temperatures were warmer during Zaman Miocene. They were about 3 to 7 degrees Celsius warmer. To be more specific, the temperature ranged from 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. Even so, it was still a very good time to go for picnics or hiking, almost every day. Then came the Zaman Pliocene, which was about 5.3 to 2.6 million years ago. So, after the hot Zaman Miocene, the temperature started to cool down, but it was still a little hotter compared to now. This led to the creation of highlands like the Grand Canyon in Colorado, USA. Isn't that cool? After that, the Zaman Pleistocene began, lasting from 2.5 million to 10,000 years ago. During this time, it got super icy. There were 11 big icy periods called glaciations. This means that lots of big ice were formed during this time. Some animals that lived during this time are still around today. Finally, we have Zaman Holocene, which started about 10,000 years ago and is still going on right now. This Zaman is special because human life made great progress. People have become smarter and learned many things in areas like education, religion, and law. It's amazing to think about how far we have come. Next, we will look at the third part of this chapter, which is Garis Masa Zaman Batu. This is about the timeline in Ice Age. According to paleontologists, the scientists who study old things, they said that the first creatures appeared on Earth began a really, really long time ago. They said it started around 545 million years ago. Can you guess what these creatures were? Let me give you a hint. They were very tiny that you would need a microscope to see them. Well, the exact answer is still debated, but scientists think it was probably bacteria. As the climate and geological periods change over time, we can find new kinds of creatures, but sadly, some old ones went away. Okay, now, we will look at the ciri-ciri of Zaman Batu Akhir or the characteristics of the Ice Age. We are going to talk about 6 of them here. First, during this time, a lot of the world's water turned to ice, causing the sea levels to become very low. This means that there was a huge land where animals were allowed to walk and migrate to other places. Secondly, this period of time was like a big freeze, and the ice spread out to cover large parts of the Earth's land. It must have looked like you are in a frozen wonderland everywhere you look. Thirdly, in this cold environment, there were some special animals that lived during this time. Have you ever heard of the woolly mammoth, rhinoceros, horse, and lion? These animals lived during Ice Age, and they had to be really tough to survive in this icy place. How did they manage to do that? They had thick fur coats to keep them warm and other special features that helped them to live in the cold. Next, what about the plants? They also had to be really strong to grow in the icy place. Most of the plants were grasses and creeping vines. They were special because they could survive in the cold and harsh environments. The 5th characteristic is that the temperature of the world during this time was low. The whole world was super cold. Snow covered a lot of the earth, especially in places like the polar regions and Europe. But guess what? Even though it was very cold, humans were able to survive during this time. They lived as nomadic hunters in the colder parts of the world. This means that they do not stay in one place, but instead, they move from one place to another to search for food. They hunted animals for food and used their skins and fur to make warm clothes and cozy shelters. In short, it was a very challenging time for plants and animals during Zaman Air Batu Akhir. The world was covered in snow and ice, and only the toughest and strongest species were able to survive. Next, we will talk about the part 5 of this chapter, which is about Perubahan Zaman Air Batu Akhir. This is about the changes that happened during this time. We will talk about 4 big changes. The first change is the sea level. They have the power to change the shape of the earth. What does it mean? When ice melts from highlands and mountains, it carries rocks and soil with it as it moves down. The extra water from the melting ice flows into the ocean. And you know what happens? It causes the sea level to change. The sea level can become deeper by 100 meters because of this. The second change is the creation of lake. The glacial activity created special lakes like Lake Dayang Bunting in Malaysia and the Great Lakes in Canada. These lakes have fresh water and they are very beautiful. The third change is some animals went extinct, which means they are not alive anymore. The animals are mammoths, sloths, and saber-toothed tigers. The last change is that people moved to different parts of the world, like Asia and Europe. All these changes show us how powerful the Earth's natural processes are. They can have a big impact on the environment and on how people live. Now, we will talk about Kesan Perubahan Zaman Air Batu di Asia Tenggara, or the consequences of the changes in Southeast Asia. We are going to talk about 2 main consequences. The first one is the rising sea levels in Pentas Sunda. And the second one is the movement of humans in the region. Let's talk about the rising sea levels in Pentas Sunda first. Around 17,000 to 20,000 years ago, the sea levels went up by 100 to 120 meters. The water was getting higher and higher. During that time, the Pentas Sunda, which is the land between the islands we see today, had low-lying areas. This resulted in people who lived here had the same lifestyle. They shared the same beliefs, language, and cultures. For example, people who lived in Malaysia, Indonesia, Southern Thailand, and Southern Philippines spoke the same language, which was Bahasa Melayu. When the ice melted at the end of Zaman Holocene, rivers and lakes were formed in Asia Tenggara. The biggest river is called Sungai Sunda Utara. These rivers flowed and caused the low-lying areas along the coast to flood. As a result, the Straits of Malacca, Gulf of Thailand, and the Java Sea were formed. It's like the water found its way and created new places. Now, we will look at the impact of these changes. Firstly, the physical shape and life in Asia Tenggara were affected. Everything started to look different. Secondly, 13% of the world's large and medium-sized mammals that live in Asia Tenggara were affected. Some animals had to adapt to the new environment, while others couldn't survive. It's a bit sad that some animals, like Pachycrocuta and Stegodon, went extinct. They are no longer with us. Zaman Air Batu was a really cool time in the past. It was very, very cold, and lots of new animals and plants came to life. Big sheets of ice moved around and made changes to the land. People also moved around during this time, and that's one of the reasons why the world is the way it is now. Isn't it fascinating how our planet has changed over time? Hope you enjoyed today's lesson and that you have learned something new. Remember to share this video with your buddies and classmates. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more awesome adventures.